Hello friends and welcome back all to Woodland Bunny. Today I'm here to share with you all of the books I read in the month of October. Starting with the stats, I read 10 books, and which is equivalent to 3,444 pages. Splitting that up by format, I read 3 ebooks, 2 audibly and 5 physically. And then in terms of the ratings I gave this month, I had 2 3 stars, 4 3.5 stars and 4 4 stars. So let's get into the books I read this month and what I thought about them. Beginning with my 3-star reads, I first of all read The Kiss Curse, in which is the second installment to the X-Hex. I think it's a duology. I'm not quite sure on the overall title of that duology. The themes that surrounded this book are witches, family, mystery, rivals, romance, and small town. So if you liked any of those themes, then I recommend this book for you. I personally felt this one was a bit more of a disappointment to the X-Hex. I much preferred the X-Hex in comparison to this one, but it was still a really good, cozy, atmospheric read that is perfect for the autumnal season, or if you're craving that witchy atmospheric read, then I do recommend this duology in total. But like I say, I did prefer the X-Hex to this one. Moving on, we then have another witchy book, in which is The Witch Haven, and this had themes of witches, school, a friendship in which it's sort of like a found family, mystery running through it, lovers, and almost this love triangle type thing, and there were a lot of plot twists and secret societies woven in as well. So if any of those themes sound interesting to you, then I'd pick up this book. I personally found it a little predictable, but there were some plot twists that threw me and I wasn't really anticipating or expecting. I had a bit of a gut feeling about them, but I wasn't quite sure which way they were going to go, so that was a delight to read. And I did find all of the characters so interesting and they really added to the story, in which was a great fun to read. Moving to my 3.5-star reads, we first have Tender is the Flesh, and this has themes of cannibalism, animal abuse and slaughter, and grief. And this was a very, very hard read. It made me feel sick, but the writing was just so pronounced, and the way that this book was placed out and written was just so unexpected, and you felt as though the character, our main character, was the only one who was seeing what a tragedy this was and how unhinged this whole system that this world had built up was. And then a huge plot twist happened and it just throws off the whole entire book, and yeah, it just has stuck with me ever since I read it, and I do recommend it. But if you are quite squeamish or you don't like these themes whatsoever, then I wouldn't recommend reading it, because yeah, it was sometimes a bit too much, but it was a very, very interesting read of this alternative society, and so I do recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. Then we have Daughter of a Pirate King, and this had themes of pirates and fated lovers. There were obviously tales of the sea and mystery surrounding it, a strong female main character, and a little bit of violence here and there, but mainly based around an adventure. And it was almost this typical YA, and it really made me just adore pirates and just get really enthralled in this world. And I definitely want to continue on this trilogy, I believe it is, because it was a really interesting first installment. Next up is Miss Ice Sandwich, and this had themes of nostalgia, childhood, emotions and understanding them, and it was quite a short novel, and I had mixed feelings upon finishing this book, but now having reflected on it being a couple weeks, I found it a really interesting read. It was something I've never really read before, and I didn't really understand the point of it to begin with, but I feel like I've kind of taken my own point from it, and that very much is, it's this child trying to process emotions, understand the world and what it means to them. And yeah, it was just really interesting to see a glimpse of this child's life and what they do with their daily life. Although the main character isn't Miss Ice Sandwich, it is a fixation point for our main character, but we never really get to learn much about that character, and I think that's what I was thrown off with when I finished this book. But then I realized how much we had learned about our main character through not knowing anything about this fixation point of this other main character. So I definitely recommend it. It is quite a short read, so it's something which you could fly through. So if that sounds interesting to you, then do consider picking this one up. Then we have my final 3.5-star read, in which is One Dark Window. This had themes of magic, mind games, royalty, and almost like this rivals lovers, I suppose, and it was just so interesting, the magic system. I wasn't a huge fan of the pacing of this book. I found like the first half went really fast and it was really easy to get into it, but then the second half not too much happened until the very end, and I feel like the ending of the book has really stayed with me, so I do want to pick up the sequel, which I think is only just released, just because I was just so intrigued on the ending. But yeah, it's a really interesting concept and it's got this gothic-y setting as well, so I do recommend this one for like a gothic-y atmospheric autumn book. Then we have my 4-star reads, beginning with My Roommate is a Vampire, and this had discussions of the new and the historic periods, because we had one character in which was very much set in their old ways and then a character in which was modern and fresh and new, and so that was really interesting. It was immensely funny. I loved the humour between our characters as well, and it was almost this sort of like fated mates forced proximity between this vampire and this human, and it was such a delight to read. So much fun. It was one of my anticipated releases of this year and it did not disappoint. The next 4-star read is 16 Souls, in which has transgender and prosthetics rep. It has mystery running through it. It had ghosts and special powers in ordinary life, and almost the supernatural coexisting with this ordinary life, and then it had a lot of plot twists and mystery running through it too, and identity, family and wholesome friendships. Packed full of so many themes, and was a very interesting read, and I believe, again, I think the sequel has only just released for this one, so I'm interested in picking that one up soon. Then my last 4-star read before I go on to my feature book was Dreams Lie Beneath, and this one I was so intrigued by the concept of it, and it was just a multi-layer plot line. There were so many plots going on, but in the best possible way. So much action woven in there. Our characters were so intriguing, and it was this rivals to lovers but fated mates at the same time, and there was family themes in here, and it was just such a delight to read. Full of magic and dreams were kind of part of the magic system, and yeah, I just had such fun reading it, and I do recommend this one if those themes sound interesting to you. Then to wrap up this wrap up, where I have my feature book, in which is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, in which I rated 4 stars. What I loved about this book was how strong the female main character was, but how relatable they were, and also how each of the characters really played a part in this novel and really just felt like they fit within this novel. None of them felt out of place, and it all just added to the cozy, atmospheric, sort of authentic, witchy read that I was craving and looking for. Something in which I think could have been better was how predictable the romance was and how predictable those characters in terms of the romance were, but I feel like that does kind of add to the magic of this being a really cozy, fun read. So yeah, those are all of the books and which I read in the month of October. I very much hope you enjoyed watching this video and gained some recommendations. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope wherever you are and whatever you're doing, you have a wonderful day or night, and until next time, my friends, bye.